I do feel like the F word is an art form. And I feel like there's many different ways to say it, and it means different things.
The other day.
You know what I mean? Like it's not universally mean one thing.
Okay.
Hey, I'm Brittany Bookout, and I want to welcome you to A Fake ID, a podcast where we uproot cultural norms in an effort to become the most authentic version of ourselves. But my biggest question is, have you ever had a fake ID? Welcome back to Fake ID. I am Brittany Bookout, and I am here with one of my closest friends, one of my favorite humans on this freaking planet, Ariel Lask, singer, songwriter, everything extraordinaire. I could go on and on. Angel on earth. I honestly, we can't even explain the amount of things that this woman can do. Honestly. Welcome to Fake ID.
Well, thanks.
Thanks.
I think
Did I
you're
miss
great
anything?
too.
Singer, songwriter, astrologist.
Yeah.
Astrologer.
Yeah.
I probably said that wrong.
It's okay.
Astrologer, singer, songwriter, astrologer. What else did I miss?
I mean, nothing.
Nothing?
Really. I mean, I just changed.
Confidant.
I'm like, every couple years I'm just like
Trying
something new. Yeah. I've worked every job there could possibly be worked because.
Expert in diamonds?
Oh, well, I worked in the diamond industry for 10 years. But I think as a creative, you work like a million jobs to keep yourself afloat, you know?
Yeah,
and
yeah,
like, I always had it. I was like never into like being a starving artist.
No.
Like, that was not going to happen for me. I just was not interested in struggling.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a lie that you have to financially struggle to like have good art.
Interesting.
So I just figured out a way to I figured out what hours I needed to be available to make it in music, and then I made sure to get a job that were the other hours.
That's so smart.
So I've worked a lot of weird jobs.
Moonlight diamond girl.
Yeah, well, daylight diamond, not diamond
Daylight
girl.
diamond girl. Moonlight songwriter.
Yeah, but not anymore. No more
But
diamonds.
No more diamonds. You're the only diamond.
Well, so are you.
Apologies in advance for all the casual inside jokes that might happen during this episode. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm just so happy you're here.
Me too.
So happy you're
really,
here.
Really fun.
Okay, so my first question.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have a fake ID in high school?
Oh, I did, and I got arrested for it.
What?
Yeah, I did. Sure did.
What?
Yeah.
Wait,
this is a cautionary tale.
Wait, this is... I was not expecting that. Yeah. You got arrested?
Sure did. Senior spring break. And my mother, I tell my parents everything. Like, there's never been secrets in my family. And I, told them, I was like, I'm going to Daytona for spring break and I'm getting a fake ID.
Daytona, Florida.
Yeah. And my parents were like, that's so dumb. You're going to get arrested. And I was like, I'm not going to get arrested. And they were so right. Because we were down in Daytona trying to buy beer at like a convenience store. Mm-hmm. Successfully bought like Mike's Hard Lemonade and Twisted Tea.
Okay.
And we wanted to get a hotel.
Very specific.
We wanted to get a cab back to the hotel because we couldn't get into any bars. We realized like our IDs were so bad.
Okay.
So we were just like, we're gonna get in trouble if we try to go to the bars. Let's just buy alcohol and like have our own party.
Okay.
We were naughty kids. And we went to this lobby of a hotel to call a taxi back to our hotel, and there were state troopers.
State troopers?
Yes.
Arrested
you. It's kind of an epic story because...
What happened?
So they were taking all of our information. We weren't taken down to the jail. We were fingerprinted.
Okay.
And then something else. I think they were just trying to scare us, to be honest. But although my friend did have to do community service. I don't know. Anyway.
You got out of it?
Well, that's a whole other thing. So the first thing that they made us do was call our parents because we were minors.
Okay.
And it was like 3 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
And like my mom just laughed at me and then put my dad on the phone and he's like, have a nice night in jail. And I was like,
are you serious?
Dad, he's like, what am I supposed to do? I'm in New York. I can't do anything for you. And I told you were going to get arrested. So here we are. Good thing you're not 18. I'll talk to you tomorrow.
You were 17 at the time?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh.
And
I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Yeah. And I mean, what? I was with good girls. And my friend, my best friend, my whole life, like my childhood best friend, I won't say her name because I know she'd kill me.
Oh my gosh.
But she was like top in the top 10 of our class, never did anything wrong in her life.
Oh my goodness.
She's having a meltdown. But my friend that we were with, another friend we were with, there was 4 of us, and her grandmother was like a half hour away from Daytona.
Okay.
And her grandmother's boyfriend came to like bail us out. We only had 30 minutes to get an adult to come get us.
Oh my gosh.
They come, and he was fuming at the cops. He was like, this is what you're arresting them for. It's juice. There's nothing in it. And he took the like iced tea, like the twisted tea and the Mike's Hard Lemonade. And he's like, I'm taking these. And the cops are like, you can't take it as evidence. And he goes, of what? That they drank juice? It was amazing. But they basically like let the states decide what to do to us.
Okay.
And 3 of us were from New York, and 1 of us was from Arizona. And we never heard of a thing.
Right.
Again, like the 3 of us from New York. But the girl from Arizona, she had to do a bunch of community service. And I don't know.
So New York didn't care.
Honestly.
Oh my gosh.
And the worst part is, like, I was facetious. Like, I was very much, like, I had a mouth on me, and I probably deserved to go to jail that night. But this girl was doing cocaine, like, on a planter next to us. And I said, officer, not to, like, cause a scene here. But I just want to know, like, what's the deal? Because you guys got mad at us for this stuff, but that girl's doing like hard drugs.
Yeah. Did
and
they say anything?
Ma'am, mind your business. And I was like,
so she wouldn't get arrested at all.
Well, they didn't see her.
Oh, okay.
But I was like, I just
she's
saw
right
her
there.
like she's right there. You're not good at your job.
Cocaine. That is so wild.
Yeah, I had a couple of big ideas, but that was the last one that I had with my face on it that I went and I paid for. Like after that, I got an older girlfriend of mine gave me her ID, and I used to like
use it.
Yeah.
Just going around in New York and stuff like that. Yeah. I was talking a few weeks ago about how I'd never had one.
Yeah.
But we would just like get in to places, and that was just a different culture back then in LA for sure. But super bad.
I mean, New York too. I never had to show my ID. We were young, we were cute, we were dressed.
That's all they want.
Yeah,
they just want girls to fill a room, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Which is like scares me for if I ever have children, but you know.
Yeah.
I cannot. That is an epic fake ID story.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
If you ask the other girls, like everyone has their own experience. Like I thought it was hilarious.
Sure.
My best friend was like the worst thing that ever happened in her life, and she still doesn't like talking about it.
Really?
She's still like, oh my God, if anyone ever found out. And I was like, girl, who cares?
Oh, that's why you didn't say her name?
Yes.
Got it.
And then there was another girl, and she was kind of like in the middle. She was like crying, but not really that scared.
Mm-hmm.
And then the girl from Arizona, she was just like, I don't even know what's happening right now.
She's like, well, whatever. But she had to do the most community service.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, today's podcast topic is expectations. Mm-hmm. Today we're talking about expectations, and that's actually kind of a good like catapult into that, you know, like how your expectation of something could have catapulted into something else. Mm-hmm. Two different, a road diverged in a narrow, what is that? What is that? Is that
two
Robert Frost?
Yeah.
Two roads diverged in a narrow wood, right? Is that how it?
Girl.
Do you remember? We had to memorize it in 7th grade.
I was like one of those students that always figured out how to get a B- or an A, but like
skate by.
I just really like studied right before and then forgot everything right after.
Yeah, I get that.
It's not a great thing to do in life, but
I don't think I ever actually read a book in high school.
I did, but
Did you?
I didn't.
I always bought the Cliff Notes. Sorry to all my teachers.
I did, but there were some that like I can't remember honestly.
Yeah.
I was a fast reader, and I always couldn't read enough. So I definitely read the books, but I just like actually I remember like freshman year of high school was just a party to me.
Really?
Yeah, like it's all I cared about was social life. Mm-hmm. And then my science teacher, I think his name was Mr. Hale. He was so hot.
He was the cutest. What's that?
Unbelievable.
All hail Mr. Hale.
All hail Mr. Hale. He was a skater boy that grew up and became a teacher. I've always had a thing for skater boys.
Haven't we all?
Not that I'm like trying to sexualize my teacher.
Oh my God.
I didn't back then. I mean, I thought he was cute, but I wasn't like
Couldn't
thinking.
get into that.
Now I'm like, he was cute.
Looking
But
back.
he pulled me aside and he was like, you don't get many like chances to fix this. So like if you keep doing what you're doing in school, you're not going to go to college. He's like, this year doesn't really count. Next year it starts counting.
Yeah.
So figure it out.
Yeah.
What do you want after high school? Because there's something after this. And I was just like, killed my vibe. But he got me on track.
He got you on track.
Yeah.
What a nice guy. All
Mr.
hail,
Hale.
Mr. Hale.
Don't even know where he went. I think he like was only in our school district for like a year or two or something, and then he moved on.
He was a skater boy, and he said, "See you
See you
later, boy." So cute.
Well, Mr. Hale, wherever you are,
We love you.
he got me on course.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Look at that, coming full circle. Up until that point, let's get into a little bit about you, like
sure.
the roots.
Sure.
So like, tell us a little bit about like where you're from, how you grew up, like that type of thing. Just like a little snapshot of what it was like growing up, Ariel.
I mean, I'm from New York. Most of my life was in a town like maybe an hour north of New York City.
Okay.
Really like typical town, right? Like nothing like. When I was little, we only had one grocery store and one gas station. So it was really tiny when we moved there. And we were coming from the Bronx, so it was a really culture shock.
Okay.
Because we had everything, and then literally it was like, I was so scared when we first moved there too. Because it was just so quiet.
Okay.
And so many trees and so many like, you know, we weren't used to that.
Yeah.
But very, like extremely culturally Jewish. And at the time, like growing up, also religiously very Jewish. Because I was in synagogue constantly.
Okay.
But once I had my bat mitzvah, my parents kind of like gave us a choice what we wanted, and I stayed. I like did Hebrew high school. I did like all different like things. I was still very active. But after, I think college is when I like kind of like was just like culturally Jewish and not didn't stay with like within the actual faith.
Okay.
So my parents kind of just like were like choose your own adventure, and so part of my family is still extremely religious, and then part of my like immediate family is just like whatever.
Yeah.
Everyone's still extremely culturally Jewish, and then all my cousins are. I shouldn't say all, but most of my cousins are very, very religious.
Okay. So that's like still your family dynamic to a certain extent.
And it's not Hasidic or Orthodox religious. That's like a whole other step.
Okay.
But like definitely keeps kosher. Definitely observes like all the holidays the way you're supposed to.
Definitely makes the best food I've ever had.
Thank you.
Literally the best food I've ever had.
Well, I'm glad.
I can't even.
That makes me so happy.
Those were all your grandma's recipes and things like that, right?
Yeah, my grandma, my great grandma, yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
I could eat that. Well, probably not every day because that would be a lot of food every day, but delicious.
I don't even remember what I made that night.
I don't even remember. Ariel cooked for me. I know I said this maybe earlier, but Ariel cooked for me and a group of our writing friends. We're songwriters together, and she made us an entire Jewish feast. Jewish feast.
Like Ashkenazi Jewish food.
Yeah, and it was like she made meat for all the meat eaters, and then me and my friend Erin are vegan. So
I made the stuffed cabbage.
Yeah, it was so good with lentils.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Homemade
for
soup.
the vegans. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. If you need recipes, this is your girl right here. Honestly, queen of the kitchen. But not just with Jewish food. Like you're just an incredible cook. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Anyway, sorry. Back to your culture.
Yeah.
So.
But I think it's the biggest personality trait. Like my Judaism is like a huge part of who I am. But like the cultural, I think people don't understand.
Yeah.
Like, people joke about it, but they don't really fundamentally understand.
Sure.
How cultural Judaism is.
Sure. Yeah.
It is, and it's not just one culture.
Right.
And I was very lucky. I grew up with exposure to more than one because my family's Ashkenazi. I'm 100% Ashkenazi, which is Eastern European Jew.
Okay.
But my cousins, so my uncle married a woman from Israel, and so they're Sephardic. Okay. So my uncle's Ashkenazi, and she's Sephardic. So growing up, we did Shabbat every week together.
Okay.
And every other week was at my house. So when we went to her house, we had all the Sephardic food. Okay. And we learned about Sephardic.
So totally different.
Unbelievably different.
Wow.
Like a completely different culture. And then you have Mizrahi, which is like Middle Eastern, like Iraqi, Persian. Like they're Mizrahi Jews, and they have an even more different. Like,
okay.
Yeah, because Sephardic is like Spanish and Mediterranean
Okay.
descent.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Anyway, it's all like
A lot of
the
different.
diaspora really. I think at one point we all had the same culture, but the diaspora put us all over the world.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
yeah.
So then what's your relationship to spirituality now? Like as you're like currently, I
Yeah.
guess. I mean, we've talked about how you do like
Yeah.
you're an astrologer.
Yeah.
Like talk about
I mean, my family's, well, it's interesting. My mother, so I think most of my family doesn't even know how like spiritual my grandmother was
Okay.
because she was very Jewish,
Okay.
but she also was like very open-minded
Okay.
about like angels and like the universe and guidance and all that. And my mom was even more so. And so my like spirituality is like rooted in like a universal love, a universal energy,
Yeah.
guidance from angels, like very much woo woo.
Okay.
Yeah.
Woo woo.
I'm a woo woo girl.
You are, but you're like a woo girl anyways.
Yeah.
You woo.
I woo.
You woo.
But yeah, so my spirituality is like very rooted more in the sense of like connectedness to energy than
Yeah.
it is to a religion.
Sure. Okay, that makes sense.
I never really fundamentally felt like organized religion was a fit for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I love that.
Yeah.
Love
And
you.
also my grandmother used to be like, God can hear you from anywhere.
That's such a good word.
It is.
That's such a good word.
Yeah.
Because that's very true.
It is.
Like-
I used to tell her all the time, like, I
Yeah.
don't feel God in the synagogue.
Mm.
And I never have. I've
Yeah.
never felt God in any place of worship. I've gone to a lot of church services because
Sure.
I've gone to like friends' baptisms or just like really important events, like
Yeah.
christenings for their children, things like that. Obviously, grew up in synagogue.
Yeah.
And even I went to like Baha'i temples, and I've gone to like other religions, and I've never
Yeah.
felt God there for me.
Yeah.
So I was
Where
like,
is it that you would feel it, God?
in the quiet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which I think is the most beautiful place to experience
Yes.
God.
I do too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So beautiful.
And also like in nature.
I feel like those are the two for me as well. As like by myself and out in nature.
Yeah. And also
sure.
eating good food.
I don't think I'm focused on eating food. Right before I eat, and then
I
move
don't
on.
focus on God.
You
It's just
feel
like
it. You're like,
I get.
this is thank you, Jesus.
I literally like if I'm eating good food, I'm like, you
know what you're doing.
did this.
You did this. Oh my gosh. And Angelica, did you feel like that too? Like you feel like you hear God in the quiet? Yeah.
Yeah.
Our producer Angelica is the best back there behind the camera. I love that though. And thanks for sharing that because I feel like I love hearing why everybody believes what they believe. Like that actually was the goal of why I started this podcast in the first place is because I wanted I have so many friends that believe so many different things and I think all of our conversations have always been so anytime I talk to you, I leave feeling like more open-minded, like more fulfilled with my life and purpose and and so I think that that's such a beautiful thing and I want other people to be able to do that with the people that they love because I feel like we can get so closed off with what we believe sometimes, and it's like we can also just listen. That doesn't mean you have to receive it or what you know what I mean? Like it doesn't mean you have to take whatever someone else believes on. But like
I also feel like what I love about Judaism is and I'm not going to say all rabbis are like this.
Okay.
But most rabbis I know are like this. They always want you to challenge your faith to make sure you're choosing it.
Okay.
So like we used to play Stump the Rabbi on Sundays.
Stump the Rabbi? Stop it.
Rabbi Katz, I don't know where you are in this world,
That's
but you are
amazing.
the absolute best rabbi in the world. And he left us, unfortunately. He moved out to California, I think.
Oh,
but he was the best. And he used to say, ask me anything. And if I don't know the answer, I will tell you the truth.
Oh, I love that.
And he'd come back the next week with the answer or some type of answer.
Yeah.
But he always wanted us to be asking questions and challenging our faith because in Judaism, they don't want you to just be Jewish because you're told to be Jewish. They want you to choose it and foundationally
believe, want
it.
Right.
And that's why it's really very hard to convert to Judaism. They won't let you convert for another person.
Sure. That's so good
though. It has to be for you.
That's so good though. We also
Yeah.
at my church, and like I'm so thankful for the leadership within that I have too, because that's a big thing for us is like always question. Like it's okay to ask questions.
Yes.
And like anybody that like I've ever led, it's like we're encouraged to like have people ask questions, and if I don't know the answer, I will say like I don't know. I don't need people to think I know everything. First of all, you can always come back to it, you know.
Yes.
And it's so important to like research and the things that you believe, to study deeply.
Yes.
And also, like you said, like you have to have faith. You know what I mean? And like that's where it lies at the end of the day. Like we all we know is our faith.
And sometimes faith is science. Like sometimes people's faith is fact.
Sure.
And science.
Yeah,
like
sure.
I can't. Some people I know cannot grasp the thought of believing in something they can't prove.
Right. Yeah.
Fine. They live their life devoted to the facts that they can look at, and that's faith too.
Yeah.
So they don't have a name for it because it's not a religion. Some people call themselves, atheists or agnostic. That's fine too, but you're still believing in something, and that's what gets you to the next day.
Sure. Yeah.
So that's your faith in some way.
Yeah. Absolutely. I love that.
Yeah.
I love it. I love you.
I love you too.
Let's get into it. Expectations, Ariel. What's the first thing that comes to your mind? The theme for today. Expectations. Great Expectations. Have you ever seen that movie?
Yeah.
The 1997 version?
So
I read the book probably once every 2 years.
That book's great.
It's one of my favorite books of all time.
Yeah.
Which I get made fun of for a lot.
I think it's a great book.
I
read Jane Eyre every year.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
No, Great Expectations is one of my favorite stories of all time.
Yeah.
Which I feel like it ends on such a sad note.
It does.
Like
that's life.
But that's life, and I think that's why I like it. Is it's realistic. I felt very very close to the character of Estella.
Yeah.
And
that's the woman, the older woman, right?
Estella is the girl.
Younger, she's the younger girl.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The older woman's the one who's like break their heart. She's like telling Estella, like stop telling her what to do.
Lives.
Yeah. The older woman gets. Anyways, I digress. But anyways, Great Expectations. Great book. 1997, Gwyneth Paltrow and Ethan Hawke.
That was a great
movie.
era of movies.
Great adaptation. But what's the first? You hear the word expectation. What do you think of immediately? Like, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
Well, things are different now. So like now in my adulthood, it's just like I immediately go like, don't have any.
Yeah.
You know, like
that's my first reaction.
Yeah.
Like expectations, like will let you down
every time.
Every time.
Because I think that expectations don't exist without pressure.
Yeah.
And also expectations are mostly external situations. Like you can't control anything in life.
Yeah.
And your expectations are usually about a situation or another person, what is set up for failure.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And like having expectations on anybody is like never a good idea because it's through your lens.
For sure.
That you've grown up that you've like that person doesn't have that lens.
Right.
So they're always gonna miss something.
Yeah, and I think there's a difference between hope and expectations.
Ooh,
and
hope is a good one.
I hope for a lot of things.
Sure.
But I don't expect it to happen.
Yeah. I love that. Hoping is good.
Yeah. And I also think that the definition of expectations doesn't match the reality.
Okay, so the definition.
Yeah.
Which we can go into I love definitions and origins of words. The listeners know this because I do this every time. But the definition of expectation is a looking forward to or waiting for something.
Right.
What would you say? What's the difference?
I think the difference is in real life, there's so much more pressure behind it, and there's so much more like absolutes.
Okay.
Right? Like,
oh.
And so
yes,
it's like that. I feel is more of hope than expectation.
Sure. Yeah. Looking forward to is hope.
It's hope.
You're totally right. But like the expectation that we live in is like, I want this to happen, and if it doesn't, I'm going to be really upset about it.
Or like with a person, I expect you to like, come home and have dinner with me at night and not go out with your work buddies. And that's not realistic.
Yeah.
Every night someone's going to come home and have dinner with you.
Sure, yeah.
Or be on time.
Right.
Or be present. And it's like you're setting yourself up for failure. I hope that we have dinner together more nights than not.
Yeah.
That's fair.
That's fair. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's almost as if like our human cultural definition of expectation is like it doesn't exist without a consequence. Like this
Or
happens,
let down,
or I'll be let down, or I'll be mad at you, or like you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's almost. I'm glad that you said that.
Sometimes I'm like, I have really strong opinions. So I was like,
No.
I hope that doesn't.
No, I love that because this is why I look up words, because
Yeah.
I feel like getting to the root of like why a word is the way it is, and then we misuse it all the time.
Always, yeah.
In our first episode, we talked about identity, and like the root word of identity is like this word, like idem or idem. I don't know how to say it. I probably am pronouncing it wrong, but it's Latin, and it means same.
Oh.
And like any time that we've talked about identity in my life, like I associate it with individualization.
For sure.
And like, so it's very interesting, like individuality, I guess.
I get that why it's called same, because it's like you're identifying it into a group or something.
Sure, yeah. Like identifying as like in Jewish culture, like how you were saying that, I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, there's like a sameness there.
Yeah.
So that's why looking up the word, it's like we get so far away from the word with our culture.
Yes.
In general, not just I'm not just saying like
life.
American culture, life culture, like wherever we are, human culture.
I will say though, there are some places in this world that you'll visit.
Yeah.
And if you were to ask someone if they have expectations or dreams, they'd be like, what?
What is that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because their life is not like that. They don't have the allowance or room or capability to even think that singularly.
Yeah.
You know?
I was watching recently, this mother was being interviewed in Uganda. And so she was speaking in her native tongue. It was being translated in captions. And she was talking about like how she feels like not a good mother because 2 of her children had passed away from malnourishment. And I'm sitting here thinking like, I felt so convicted in that moment, because that type of thing, it's like, she would never have this, her only expectation is like, I hope that I can feed my child.
Right.
And she felt like she fell short of that. And it's just
really
like,
sad.
right?
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm over here complaining that whatever's not happening fast enough in my career, like, you know what I mean? And it just put life into such perspective for me, because it's like, what, getting to the root of like why do we have expectations? It's good to have goals, I'm not denying that, but like having like expectations on, oh, I should have been here by now or there by now, like it's like this woman is just trying to survive.
For sure.
And you know, it made me have this complete, like you said, in a different part of the world, that expectation would be totally different.
Yeah, and like I feel like expectations also set you up to fail because the goalpost is always changing.
Yeah.
Like I have to constantly remind myself that I was praying for my life I have now.
Yeah.
5, 10, 15 years ago. So it's like, because I have all these goals that haven't happened yet.
Yeah.
And if you're defining life meeting your expectations by a certain goal, you're going to be miserable.
Yeah. Like so miserable.
Mm-hmm.
So miserable.
Yeah.
The root word of expectation is from mid 16th century is where we first start to see it, and it's like defer action or to wait, which is interesting because when I think of expectation, I'm like, I'm expecting that, I'm going to run after it,
right?
Which is the opposite. It's saying defer action, and it's from a Latin word which means to look out for. So again, going back to like maybe a hope, a waiting.
Yeah.
But we're obviously miscommunicating or almost misusing the word.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways.
Or maybe the word itself, like, is, how do I say this? Like, it was never going to be a reality. Like, definition of it could never possibly be a reality for human beings.
Sure. That's so interesting. So interesting.
In the way that we conceptualize it.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, no, I love
This is my
that.
opinion.
I love your opinion. That's why you're here. I want your opinion. I want to hear more. Okay, how have expectations affected your relationships with other people in life? Any good stories?
I don't know. I had such like I don't know how to describe it. Like my family is very special, and there was like a closeness even with extended family, and everyone kind of did for each other. So like my whole life up until like independence, I had never experienced people letting you down,
Okay. Wow.
right? Like I always
Yeah.
had somebody to rely on. That's not to say I didn't have pain because like I had a lot of like really sad things happen when I was little,
Yeah.
but I always had the support system,
Sure.
which actually I think plays into too like I'm not afraid to say this publicly like
Sure.
I was sexually abused for 7 years of my childhood. I think that changes your relationship with expectation too because you almost are like born into expecting bad things in the world
People to hurt you.
or like people being not who you think they are or like I never had a reality in which evil and good didn't exist. Like I had the evil, but I also had the unbelievable good.
Yeah.
What a blessing because it made me like heal very quick. Like I didn't spiral in my life because I had this like very strong foundation.
Yeah.
But anyway, so expectations, like I was never let down by my family, you know? Like I was never like I saw evil and I knew evil existed.
Yeah.
But I never had anyone close to me let me down.
Yeah.
And I didn't have anything life-wise yet. Like I wasn't going for anything, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, like I definitely had to like push my way into the talent show in high school because they did not put me in the talent show, and I just went every single day until he finally caved and put me in. Like, so, you know, like I definitely like had little moments where my expectations didn't get met, but
Yeah.
I always viewed it more of as like a challenge accepted
Yeah.
rather than being let down by something.
Mm-hmm.
But when I got into the world, like college, making new friends you didn't grow up with,
Mm-hmm.
and thinking that they were going to have the kind of loyalty I have to people,
Right. Yeah.
that was like
Mind blowing.
mind blowing.
Yeah.
And that changed the way I worked with expectations, and it definitely affected my relationships because the moment I realized, and it took me a long time to realize that people don't care necessarily as much as you do. Like you could think someone's your best friend and you are not theirs.
Right.
Right? Or like you think that they would do anything for you, but when it came down to it, they actually don't. And so it takes like years to see that in people, but that like in my early 20s is when I realized I cannot expect people to love the way I love, and I can't expect people to show up the way I show up. And I was always a giver to my detriment back then. I never knew how to say no. I never put myself first, and I had to like reach a breaking point.
Yeah.
Because I was expecting other people. Like I would get my feelings hurt all the time because I wouldn't say what I needed. I would expect that because I show up one way, that someone else would show up for me that way. And then I had to learn in my like early 20s. I learned like you can't expect people to do what you do.
Yeah.
And if you need something, ask for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Does that ever creep back in?
never.
Sometimes in life? No.
Once I'm burned,
Yeah. You move on.
I move on, and I hope that my friends will show up the way I show up, and when I'm dating someone, I hope that they will love me the way I love them, and like do what I, the efforts I put in, but I don't expect it anymore.
Yeah. It's like the second that you see that, you're able to be like, okay, that's not what I want, and I can move on. Yeah.
But I also feel like I'm learning how to be vulnerable enough to like let people course correct.
Sure. Oh yeah. That's a hard thing to learn though.
Yeah.
It's a hard thing to navigate.
For sure.
In
'Cause
general.
I just want to cut ties and move on.
Yeah.
But I've actually only ever walked away from 2 friendships my whole life.
Really?
Everyone else, like, things have fizzled out.
Yeah.
But there are only two people in this world that I deliberately cut out.
Mm-hmm.
Because they were just toxic and bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The course correction thing is interesting because I feel like you and I have had conversations about this, like off camera. Just like even like in a romantic relationship situation, right? Like it's like I'm trying to learn how to have like more patience because it's a different. This is like it's like a whole different world sometimes.
Yeah.
When you're like, okay, wait, maybe it's not so cut and dry.
Right.
Like maybe you can just be patient.
For sure.
And then like that's kind of a different thing to have to learn, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know. But having those expectations is like, it's always going to be, it always does end up letting you down if you have an expectation.
But as you're saying that though, I just realized like I refuse to be in a romantic relationship if it's not a certain kind of like level of love and connection. And so I do have a expectation of the kind of love I'm going to commit to.
Sure. Yeah.
And I don't know if it's out there, but if it's not, I'd rather be alone.
Yeah. which we've talked about too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like if somebody's not responding to, like, you know, you in the way that you feel like you need to be loved, like, that's an important thing to just be like, wait, I do not like how this makes me feel.
Yeah.
That this isn't a good thing. This isn't something, I don't need to try for anyone's affection.
Yeah.
Ever.
Well, I just don't need to, like,
earn.
Yeah, I was gonna say earn.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's more like I'm looking for, like, a soul level connection, which doesn't happen at first. You have to get there.
Right.
But I want somebody who is not just about the attraction.
Yeah.
And not just about like a human level needs thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, I want someone who's, like, on this journey with me on a spiritual level as much as on a human level.
Yeah.
I think that there's love out there that, like, it's how do I describe it? I think that's part of the reason it's so hard for me to find someone. Is like, it's hard for me to describe what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
I know how it feels in my body.
Yeah.
You know, it's like someone that's not going to walk away if your body changes. Someone who wants to be a parent as much as I want to be a parent.
Yeah.
Someone who wants to really build something together.
Yeah.
Someone who's not going to lie or hide.
Yeah.
You know, I don't like people who run away from problems.
Right.
I'll be your friend, but I'm not going to make a life with you.
That's the difference,
run
right?
from problems. I don't go to bed angry.
Yeah.
I could wake up still pissed off, but I'm not going to go to bed without at least telling you I still love you.
Yeah.
And, like, sleep in the same bed as you.
Yeah.
I'm not doing the whole, like, we don't sleep in the same room thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So it's just, like, finding someone who's, like, going to fight to make it work when life is, like, literally ripping us apart. Because life always comes to that point for couples. Like, it will always try to break you apart.
Yeah.
And if I don't have a partner who's willing to fight with it, like, with me for it, like, fight for this.
Yeah.
I'm not doing it.
Yeah. I recently had heard somebody say it in the way that, like, be with somebody who's going to go to war with you.
Yeah.
You know, like a teammate.
And for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that.
I don't want to be anyone's mommy. I just don't.
No.
I'm a nurturing person. I don't want to be your mommy, though.
I know.
Like, I'll take care of you, but I don't want to be your mommy.
It's hard, though, because you are such a maternal person. I feel like I can relate to that, too. Like, I'm very maternal. And so it's hard because, like, it's innate in you to care for people.
Yes.
But it's like, I have to stop myself sometimes. Like, especially with romantic relationships, I can almost come off as, like, closed off. Because I'm, like, trying not to give too much.
Fair.
You know? Because you have to see, like, is somebody going to actually do that also for me? Like, I need to know that someone's going to fight for me.
Yeah.
That's, I think that's my biggest expectation.
Yeah, my Gen Z friends, they taught me a lot. And this one young girl,
We
she's
love
like,
Gen Z.
I love Gen Z.
We love them.
And this artist I work with, she's like 21. I don't know, maybe 22 at most. And she's like, recently, because I had like a, you know, my past life.
I know.
She's like, you're giving girlfriend energy. You're giving girlfriend energy and dedication, and they're not even giving you first date energy. And I was like,
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, so now
don't give girlfriend energy or boyfriend energy.
Yes.
Whoever's listening. If you're not
getting the same level of commitment, do not give them your girlfriend and boyfriend energy.
Yeah.
But it took me a long time to learn that. Because, again, I expected if I came in with girlfriend energy, that they would match me with boyfriend energy, and that is not how it goes.
Yeah.
They start to expect that behavior from you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they'll take, any human being, man or woman, if you're willing to give, they'll take whatever they can get.
Yeah. Right.
So if you're giving it.
Yeah.
So I think now
Yeah, you're worth more than that. Like, I always feel like that's always my message to everybody else is like you have to know, like, and not you know your worth, and I know this, but like in general, like you have to know your worth. Like you have to believe that you're worth more than that. Like
for sure.
There is no reason that anybody should be taking advantage of you, like ever. And if you feel that way, run for the freaking hills from that relationship, especially romantic. That's the most intimate, like exposed place we can be.
For sure. And
I just feel like you have to protect that. You have to guard that at all costs.
For sure. And also I feel like as a bigger bodied woman, like learning that like there are men and women, but I like men of all heights and sizes and handsomenesses.
Yeah,
That's not a word. That love bodies like mine too.
Right.
And that I don't need to lower my expectations or my type or anything in order to find someone, because there's a societal expectation of what women's supposed to look like.
Sure.
And that's been changing, but we grew up in a real rough era.
Yeah, we did.
And a lot of even men in our era do believe that women are not beautiful if they're not a certain way.
Sure.
But you know what? Then I won't look in our age group. That's
Sure.
fine. But the expectation that bigger bodied women should just take what they can get, it's changing, thank God. Thank you, Gen Z.
Thank you, Gen Z.
But it's not changing fast enough.
Right.
But I don't have to live by that expectation.
Yeah.
And I expect to be treated with as much respect as you would a woman who has, you know, a perfect 90s body. You know, like,
90s.
what's a perfect
Literally
body?
a 90s body.
I would have slayed in the Renaissance era.
You slay now.
Thank you. But I would have slayed in, like, medieval times,
Heck yeah,
Renaissance
girl.
era. Like, they loved a bigger lady. Look at the painting.
Look at the painting.
Okay, those were
Go look at
selfies
them.
back
Yeah,
then.
selfies. But you slay now.
Thank you. I know I slay now.
Yeah, you do.
But it took a long time to feel that way.
Yeah, and I mean, like, same, right? It's because of the era we grew up in. Like, you know, and we've talked about this on the podcast too. It's like, it was so cool to be like 102 pounds or whatever at the time, you know? It's like, that would never be me.
I think my, like, toe was never even 102 pounds. Like,
my right leg has never been 102 pounds. But
I was never destined for that.
Never.
No.
And there's no reason that we should be.
No.
Like, beauty comes in all, you know what I mean? And what do I always say? Like, I'm always like, you can have whoever you want. I say that to everybody.
She does. She tells me all the time, you can have whoever.
I believe I can have whoever I want.
I can have anyone.
You can.
Okay.
Yeah, you can.
We're working on it.
And you can have whoever you want. You just, like, honestly,
yeah.
Whoever you are, you're the most beautiful girl in the room. You're the best guy in the room. And it's not even about, like, looks all the time or whatever. Like, there's an energy that you bring to the table that's, like, unlike anybody else. And, like, so you're the only you that can enter a room.
Yeah.
And I love that. Like, I just, there is no one like you. There is no one like you. Okay, so have you ever had a time where expectations have affected your relationship with yourself?
That's a hard question.
It is.
Well, I struggled with self-confidence for so many years. Probably if you asked that version of me, that would have been a resounding yes. But I've not had that issue in so many years that I don't resonate with the idea of expectations of myself anymore. I am a single woman in my almost late 30s.
You're a queen.
Thank you. I have a few days left of being 35. So
Oh my gosh.
we're going to say mid 30s.
So close.
I like, you know, I'm a woman who's living on her own, unmarried, and I'm supporting myself. And so I think that responsibilities, like I put a lot of responsibilities on myself because I have to.
Yeah.
But that's not expectation, you know?
Yeah.
I'm not like, career-wise, I have goals, I have dreams and hopes.
Sure.
But I'm very proud of where I am.
Yeah.
So no, not there.
Yeah.
I do have expectations of the kind of love I'm going to have.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
But with myself, it's like, I think the only thing I expect of myself is to be respectful of myself and take care of myself and, you know, try and not get this all messed up.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you've ever put expectations on, like, your identity or, like, sexuality? Like, sexual side of your identity? Never?
No, but I grew up in, like, my parents and my grandparents, well, okay, actually, my parents kind of were always like, as long as you're safe, like, explore yourself. And, like, there are consequences for your actions. So, you know, be aware.
Yeah.
Then on the opposite hand, my grandfather, I'll never forget, like, he sat me down and he was like, yes, like, you can do whatever you want. You won't be damned. God won't hate you. We won't be disappointed in you. But there is something to be said about not knowing what you're missing. Like, you can find people who are great lovers in this world who are not great for you.
Right, yeah.
And, like, they might be better than the person you marry in bed. But if you've never experienced them, then you won't know what you're missing. And you'll just love the sex life you have with your husband or wife. And that always stuck in my head, too. And for a while, I expected myself to wait till marriage.
Yeah.
And then very much.
And you didn't.
Literally, like, 25. I was a late bloomer, and at 25, I was like, no, I'm done with this.
Yeah.
I'm done with this. And I just went for it.
I kind of went for it. But what is your relationship like with sexuality now, like with sex?
I think I've always just been very open-minded.
Yeah.
I've always, and not to get astrological, but
No,
I'm a
it's
Scorpio
okay.
rising. We are sexual people.
That's so funny.
Sex has always been something that I love talking about, and I love partaking in with the right people.
Sure.
I don't do one-night stands. I do not do, like, friends with benefits.
So, like, in the context of relationship mostly? Okay, gotcha.
I mean, there were obviously, like, early 20s when I was kind of figuring it out.
Sure.
I was always open to, like, the idea of, I don't even know what I like yet.
Yeah.
Until I try it.
Sure.
So I tried so many things, you know?
Yeah.
And I have hard yeses and hard nos now.
Yeah.
And I was always, even, like, sexual identity, like, I was always open to the idea that, like, I don't know, I've never been with a woman. Maybe I would want to be with a woman. But then I was like, not for me.
Not for me.
Yeah, but that was just my experience. You know, most men, not all. You gotta really crack open their walnut to get into their feelings. Women just come like, hello, here are all the bajillion things I feel.
The best terminology ever. The best little Arielisms.
Just like, gotta get in there.
Gotta just like a hammer.
You can't just like throw it on the ground and it cracks. I gotta get like a nutcracker. You know what I mean? Like, it's not easy to get into a guy's field.
We know this.
Unless they're a Pisces.
I don't even know what that means. We could go into it.
Empathic.
Okay.
In the zodiac. I honestly, like, as someone who practices astrology, like, I never hold people to their signs. The whole chart matters, and you know that I feel that way.
Yeah, we've talked about it.
I do love to joke about zodiac signs.
Yeah, I love hearing about it.
Yeah.
I do have another question, though, about, like, sex in general.
Yeah.
So, majority of this podcast is, I mean, we're always trying to figure out, like, why people believe what they believe, but also, like, how people, women specifically, have, like, related to sex.
Yeah.
But do you ever feel like you've stayed, or even seen a friend, like, stay in a relationship because of sex? Like, is there
stay in a relationship for it?
Yeah, like,
oh my
do you
God,
think...
I know so many people.
Do you think that, not only because it's good,
okay,
but because, like, do you think there's a tie there, like a soul connection attached to, like, a relationship and sex?
That's hard to answer because I think a lot of people have a really hard time being vulnerable enough to have a soul connection. I know a lot of people who dissociate and have sex just to feel good.
Really?
A lot.
Wow.
So you have to, it's easy to have fun, casual, and whatever sex for pleasure. It's very hard to make love. I mean, that's really vulnerable.
Sure.
And then, you know, like, I mean, I know a lot of people that have very vulnerable, very deep, beautiful, loving sex.
Yeah.
That is soul connected.
Yeah.
But that's a choice. You have to choose it.
Sure.
I mean, most people don't start off having soul connected sex.
Sure. That's so interesting.
They start off having just bad sex.
They start off just
until
having
they
bad sex.
figure out what they like. There's a lot of vulnerability, communication that has to happen for that.
Yeah.
And I don't know if those conversations are happening a lot.
Yeah.
I know a lot of very, very unsatisfied women.
Wow.
And it's not because the man doesn't try.
Sure.
And they probably are amazing lovers.
Yeah.
But they're not being communicated with enough to be...
And how do you communicate that? You know what I mean? Like, that's
very vulnerable.
Well, you're very honest. But, like, that is, I feel like that's also part of why I wanted to start this podcast is because I feel like women talking about sex, it's either, like, so extreme in one direction of just, like, overly sexualized, really just, like have at it, like, which, no judgment on that. I'm not saying that. But there's, like, one extreme of that. There's the other extreme of just don't talk about it at all. And then it's like, so then what are we doing when women are finally in relationships or marriages
Yes.
where there's like, hormones, you want to, like, that's part of your lifestyle, hopefully, with your husband. And then it's like, you don't even know how to communicate what you want. What do you not want to hurt his feelings? You don't know. Like, you know what I mean? So it's like, how do you even bring that up? Like, how would you even have that conversation?
If I've never talked about it before?
Yeah.
I think if, like, you're not someone who wants to like, there's like, some people are very religious and they're not, like, allowed religiously to self-gratify, and
or even just don't feel comfortable.
Yeah.
Honestly. So what if, okay, so you're talking to somebody who doesn't feel comfortable.
That won't do that. Okay.
That won't do that.
I guess the first question would be why? Why don't you feel comfortable?
Yeah.
It's your body.
Sure.
Now I'm going to get a little bit controversial.
Okay.
About gratifying your body, because there's a lot of chemicals and hormones that get released when you orgasm that are really good for your physical and mental health. How is that bad? In my mind. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
So when you're asking yourself, like, the first thing is, like, why are you uncomfortable? Have you been taught to ignore your body? Women are always out of their bodies. I mean, we're taught to, like, hide our bodies, protect our bodies, shield our bodies, not touch our bodies, don't tempt someone to touch our bodies.
Right, yeah.
So how are you going to be sexually satisfied when you've been literally told to ignore your body your whole life?
Sure, yeah. It's an interesting conversation. You know what's interesting is I feel like for everybody that's so different.
For sure.
And like because like even for myself, like I feel like any time that I've like done that, it's always left me feeling more empty than feeling like fulfilled. Obviously, whatever in the moment, I'm sure like, everybody like gets gratified pretty quickly, like, or whatever. But at the end of the day, like it always left me like feeling not good, which is why I choose not to.
Do you think not good because it wasn't like a shared experience with someone like you're deeply in love with?
Yeah, absolutely. I think being in like my personal belief, which is obviously maybe a little different from yours, is that like that is designed in the context for more than one person. You know what I mean? And so like if there isn't somebody else there, it's not doing the same thing that it's supposed to. And I also think there's a level within faith too that I feel, in scripture, right? In the Bible, there's a level of it like talking about denying yourself in order to glorify the Lord. You know what I mean? And so like within that context, like sex is so it is so intimate, and it is so something like within your own body on top of that, that I feel like, even that idea of like your body is a temple and that type of thing, like those two worlds could correlate too, into why that emptiness is there, like after the fact, you know what I mean?
For sure.
So like, I think it's a gray area for sure. But in my head, I think it's always like, is something bringing me closer to God or further away from Him?
For sure.
And that in particular makes me feel further away, I think. And not that He moves, but you know what I mean?
For sure. Yeah. It's a complicated conversation.
It's a complicated conversation.
And my opinion is, but I don't think that if a man, here's another controversial thing, like if a man in a relationship is expecting sexual gratification for himself,
expectations,
well then you have a right as a woman to at least find out with what your body likes, because if he can biblically, like if you're married and the husband's allowed to have gratification, do you really think God didn't want women to have gratification either?
Absolutely not.
Right.
In
Like,
general.
So it's like that has to start here. You have to start like mentally, like changing your relationship with what you're allowed to feel sexually. And then I would say, like, I would encourage them to like research, not watching pornography, like research like romance, research like what makes you feel safe and relaxed in your body.
I feel like it's really interesting what you said about like when someone's experiencing sex, like there's things that are beneficial to the body. And so like even like going back maybe to even just what I believe, not to make it about what I believe, But like I think that for me that's really cool because
Yeah.
to me in like the confines or like the design of marriage, which is where like we've talked about this. Like
Yeah.
I have no interest in like having sex outside of marriage,
Yeah.
but that's not like,
That's totally fine.
you know, but that's like within the confines of marriage. It's like what a beautiful thing if I
Oh my
ever
God.
choose to get married,
So
right?
beautiful.
But what a beautiful
Yeah.
thing that there's like benefits to like having that intimacy with your partner,
Yeah.
and that can benefit your life, you know,
Yeah.
beyond just like an instant gratification.
It does.
It's amazing.
An orgasm
You know
a
what I
day
mean?
keeps the doctor away. That's my personal ethos. I will die by that.
I love you.
I really do.
But I think the communication, like you said, is
sure.
so important. Like being able to just talk about it,
Mhm.
like first and foremost.
Yeah.
Like be like, hey, like this, if that is your partner, that's the person that should be closest to you and you feel safest with,
Mhm.
anyways. So hopefully,
Yes.
you know, so like having that conversation
Yeah.
so that it is something that you're experiencing together, always like running towards the ability to experience that together
Mhm.
would be like an amazing goal, right?
Yes.
But like like you said, knowing that not everything is going to be able to be fulfilled necessarily, but having those open conversations is so important with somebody that you're intimate with.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And if you're gonna wait for marriage, you're still allowed to have those conversations before you get married.
Sure. Yeah.
And you should.
Yeah.
You should ask them like, what's something you've been dreaming of experiencing and
Sure.
trying? Like, what are things that you are scared?
Yeah.
Like, what makes you scared? Like, what do you know about sex? You know,
Yeah.
what things would you never want me to say or do? You know, like, because like I feel like when
Yeah.
you're in a religious circumstances, there's also like a lot of like moral things that you're like, I would never want a partner who does X, Y, and Z to get. You should know
Right.
because you guys might not align on what's
Right.
crossing a line.
Sure.
So have the conversations anyway.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe watch Bridgerton or something. Get some inspiration
spicy,
on that.
little
It's not porn.
spiciness.
It's just a spicy romance show.
It's a little porny.
No,
A little
that's
bit.
light.
Is there anything that you want to share about like astrology? I know it's like such a big part of your life. So
Yeah.
I'm curious like how you got into it,
Yeah.
all that.
Well, I got in. I've always been interested in astrology, and but I didn't understand it, and I kept trying to learn it because it's like another language. But I just wasn't clicking. And then I met an incredible astrologer, Heidi Rose Robbins. What an astrologer.
Okay.
Anyway, I met her a couple years, like 3 or 4 years ago.
Okay.
Almost, no, 3.5 years ago. And but I've been doing like intuitive readings my whole life. Like I've always been in that world, and so I was like, oh, this is the energy behind what I read. Like this is what I'm reading. I just know it was planetary.
Yeah.
And so that's when I started doing astrology.
Dang.
And yeah, I'm still finding my way. But
Yeah.
I really, really love it, and it's been life-changing and life-giving, and yeah.
Do you feel in any way that astrology like points you back to like realizing that like God exists in any way?
All the time.
Really?
And funnily enough, in my journey, because when I say like I've only been doing astrology a few years, it's like I've only understood it for a few years. I've been trying my whole life to understand it, because
Yeah.
in Judaism there's Kabbalah and it's mysticism, and part of that was this astrological study called Mazalot, and it's been lost. It got lost after the diaspora, but it was this like every part of like our Torah, if you like really like look through, like it's just layered with astrology. And so it's amazing because it was like always in my roots and always under there, you know, vibrating,
almost
like
part of your culture.
It is, but we don't, Jews don't talk about astrology at all. Like it's not part of the Jewish conversation anymore,
Sure.
but it is part of the Jewish foundation.
Yeah.
So
Interesting.
I just think no one knows it because we lost that.
Yeah.
We lost that like type of divination, but
Yeah.
it's I also feel like even like the seers and the prophets in like other religions, like they were onto it. They understood it. They weren't. It wasn't coming out of thin air.
Sure.
It was and so that's what I've always used is like the energy. I can feel it. I can feel the energetic shifts.
Sure.
I think most people can. We're all very much more intuitive than we think we are.
Than we think we are. Yeah. If you just pay attention.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so like I feel deeply like it all goes back to the highest energy source, which religion calls God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I
And
love
astrology made it. I always thought it was kind of crazy. Like, what is this energy that I'm reading? And then when I really understood astrology, like foundationally, I was like, oh, that's what I'm reading. I'm reading when Mercury is, conjunct, I don't know, Venus, or when it's, I'm reading when it's opposite Pluto, whatever it may be. Like, I can feel it.
It's really cool.
But it's funny because like astronomers, they will never like they're like astrology,
Really?
Yeah,
But
because
there's-
scientific people are just like the zodiac has nothing to do with
It's
this.
like
And
science and
just-
spirit is
yes,
different. It's
exactly.
like totally separate things.
So I'm like, well,
We're-
you do you.
You're
If
like,
you
but
ever
they could
wanna know
work
your
together.
zodiac- Yeah.
They could work together. Okay, last question, closing question. I'm so glad that you're here today.
Me too.
Closing question. At what point in your life did you feel like you became sure of who you were? Or are you still in the process?
Well, I don't think we're ever one thing, and I think we're always changing.
Sure.
But I became sure of myself when I moved to Nashville, and I was like 27.
Okay.
Yeah.
And why do you feel that way?
Because I found friends that celebrated me with or without me in the room.
Yeah.
And I realized that like I was safe to be myself. And then I was able to like really ask myself, who am I and what do I want and what do I believe in? Because I had people who were like, I love you anyway. You know?
Yeah.
My friends from back home, I love them and I still am friends with a lot of them, but I think when you grow up with someone, you hold them to who they were.
Of course.
And I don't know. And sometimes I revert back to who I was because like that's like the default and you're with people anyway. But I wasn't allowed to like be spiritually very open there, and especially as an intuitive and as an astrologer, like that's not New York's not woo woo.
Yeah, but you feel like Nashville was?
Hell no, no, that was the least woo woo. But I made a promise to myself when I moved that when someone asked me who I was, I would introduce myself as like a songwriter and an intuitive.
Wow.
Because I just didn't want to hide it anymore.
Sure.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
So, and now I can add astrologer.
I'm Ariel Lask, singer, songwriter, astrologer, artist, songwriter, astrologer.
Well,
I mean, all the things. Well, thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah,
I had
thank
the
you.
best time. One of my closest friends, just chatting like life, like we always do.
Yeah.
What a blessing.
Thank
Do
you
you
for having me.
want to share your socials with anybody where they could follow you?
Okay.
If you want.
Sure. I don't really use socials much,
Okay.
but I guess for the astrology stuff, your spiritual side.
Your spiritual side, at your spiritual side, on Instagram.
Yeah, and TikTok, but I'm really bad.
I mean, okay.
Haven't put a video up in many months.
I love it. Everybody give it up for Ariel, whether you're in your car or you're at home or at work, maybe a silent scream.
Thank
Thank
for
you
having me.
so much for being here. You guys can follow at the Fake ID Podcast on Instagram, and we'll talk to you later.
Yay.
She's gonna give you a step by step.
Run a bell.
Oh my gosh, Ariel.
Send a candle.